You're either going to love this video or you're going to thoroughly hate me for making it. The video that I'm responding to here, it isn't the kind of thing that I'd usually respond to. It is entitled, Take This Quiz to See If You've Sexually Harassed Someone. Yes, folks, it's quiz night tonight. Why am I responding to this video? It's a dire video that I'm responding to. It is a channel that has over 1 million subscribers, so it has a bit of pull. And when you listen to what they're conflating and the kind of message that they're giving, it's the kind of message that I think is actually harmful. It's not just that it's a shit video, it's the kind of thing that actually does more harm to the causes that I presume it's trying to champion than it actually manages to help. Okay, let's allow them to introduce their video and I'll make a few comments along the way and then we'll get to take the quiz. See just what a sexually harassing bastard I actually am.
So in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein scandal and the Me Too campaign of all of these women coming out bravely with their stories of sexual harassment and sexual abuse, like I think you would not be like hard pressed to find that a lot of your friends or maybe even yourself have committed more seemingly innocuous forms of harassment.
Okay, so you're not Harvey Weinstein, you've not done anything like Harvey Weinstein, but the message of this video is don't let that make you think that you're off the hook, because you're not, because there's a lot of other things that constitute sexual harassment, as you will see in the quiz. And effectively they've defined it in the same kind of way that unless you've spent your entire life in a permanent fucking vegetative state, then you are a sexual harasser. There's almost something kind of religious, something kind of like the Christian perspective here. You know, is Hitler a bad person? Of course he's a bad person, he's a sinner. But if you've touched yourself down your trousers in your bedroom, in the comfort of your bedroom at any time, then you're a sinner as well. And in the eyes of God, you're just as bad as Adolf Hitler. There's a little bit of a touch of that to this video. Let's allow them to elaborate a little bit more.
Culture, and when we say like rape culture, right? Like I think that seems so jarring and people are like, well, I've never raped a woman, so I'm not part of the problem. Right. But rape culture is a lot bigger than just the actual raping, right? Like there are little like subtle forms and more casual forms of harassment that contribute to rape culture.
It's become so manipulative, the usage of the term rape culture in the political parlance. It's gone from something that had a definition to what you see here, which is that everything constitutes rape culture. Wait until you see the list of things that are actually involved in this quiz, and you will realize, just the same as I did, that for people like this, the idea of ending rape culture is an absolute absurdity. You would have to kill all human beings. You'd have to end the actual species, because you are talking about some of the most mundane things that you've ever heard.
We are going to ask you guys if you are part of the problem, and we're gonna take a little quiz together. And this can go for ladies and gents, all right? So let's walk through these and we're gonna explain each one, but if you have ever done one of these, I want you to write down, or keep it in your head, you guys are all smart, give yourself 1 point, all right? And so we'll tell you what the points mean at the end.
Okay, so at the risk of spoiling the whole thing, I'm going to tell you the score sheet in advance, which is that if you scored 0 at the end of the quiz, then you're okay, you've passed. But if you scored 1 or above, then you are part of the problem. You are part of the sexual harassment problem. You are part of rape culture, my friend. Okay, so bearing that in mind, let's start going through the quiz. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Quiz Night, you bunch of harassing cunts. So on with the quiz, and I'll allow them to introduce each question. But before I do, just note that they said right before they started this that all these questions are for women as well as for men. When you read the questions, you will see by the way they're worded, they are firmly aimed at men and men. I suppose you could say lesbian women, but let's be honest, these questions are aimed at men. I can only think that they had a little moment of regret, just a little moment of introspection right before they released the video, and thought, you know, most of these things are so fucking mundane. These are things that women do just as much as men. It seems a little bit odd that we're only aiming them at men and then accusing men of being sexual harassers on the back of it. You'll see when you see the questions exactly what I mean. Okay, on with question 1.
So the first one being, if you've looked at her or him in a way that made them visibly uncomfortable. So if you saw like you were like, you know, that up and down sort of thing, and you saw them get uncomfortable, give yourself 1 point.
So is this just me? This seems a spectacularly bad start. I think you'd have to be some real weirdo not to score a point on this one. I thought after they read the question out, she would say something like, well, hang on a minute, we're not just talking about checking somebody who spent 2 hours getting ready to make themselves look sensational, just looking them up and down and admiring them. No, we're talking about standing there staring. But she says the exact opposite. She says, no, if you've looked somebody up and down and it's made them feel uncomfy, then you get a point. Then you're a sexual harasser. I've never heard so much crap in all my life. If I was a single guy and I was dressing myself up, going out spending money on the clothes that make me look good, maybe if I was in good shape, I'd be wearing all the figure-hugging clothes to try and make myself look good. But if a woman dares to allow her eyes to stray down from eye level, if that makes me feel uncomfy, then she's an harasser. What is the point of it all? What's the point of dressing up? What's the point of wearing nice clothing? What's the point of wearing figure-hugging clothing? Wearing clothing that reveals so much flesh? If anybody who looks at you is a sexual harasser, this just doesn't make any sense. You're demonizing normality. You're talking about people going out wanting to be looked at, but if anybody looks at them, then they're a sexual harasser.
If you've looked at her breasts while talking to her, this happens to me, and I don't even have breasts. I mean, I do, but they're, you know what I mean? It's not like they're like...
It's like the natural reaction for a man to just look down first before looking up. And
or if you're like talking and you're just sort of like staring.
Staring.
That's like a different sort of...
Yeah, well, staring is awful though.
Yeah, well, give yourself a point if you've done that.
So it's a natural reaction for a guy to look down, but give yourself a point anyway, right? You're still a sexual harasser. It's a natural reaction for a woman to look down. Most women I know speak to say that if somebody, they can't stop looking at a, you know, let's be honest. I mean, what is going on here? What kind of world do we want to live in here? If you go out, let's be frank, right? If you go out showing as much tit as is permissible in Western society, which means you can't show kind of nipple or areola. That's about the limit, isn't it? But let's have it pushed down as low as possible, your top, and your tits shunted up as much as possible to make them as difficult as possible not to stare at, not to look at. You know, how are you supposed to, it's like the fucking elephant in the room. How are you supposed to look somebody in the eye and not notice these breasts that are being shunted up as if they're saying, look, fucking have a good look, pal. Look at these bad boys. But if you look at them, wow, well, alarm bells go off, you're a sexual harasser. It just doesn't make any sense. Imagine if guys who spend ages in the gym building up their muscles, right, they go out often, don't they, in these really tight tops or in these little sleeveless tops with their muscles bulging. Imagine if I was built like that, I'd do exactly the same thing. Imagine if guys went out like that, and as soon as a woman stood and admired his arms or the size of his pecs, he was like, oh, what do you think you're looking at? That's a bit out of order, looking at my muscles. Well, he wouldn't go out like that if he didn't want people to look at his fucking muscles. I mean, fine, if somebody stands there for 10 minutes fucking staring down your top, yeah, I get it, that's a fucking problem, but Jesus Christ, you know, what's it about where people, it's like some kind of fucking trap, right? So people go out showing as much flesh. Why? Because I really don't want people to look at my tits, so I'm going to go out in this top showing as much tit as I can get away with without being thrown out the club. It just doesn't compute, does it? You're just setting up a system where, oh, it's got to be rape culture. Okay, so for the sake of brevity, which is not something I'm usually known for, I'll go through the next three manually. Stolen a kiss, I've not a lot to say about that one. Followed a woman you're interested in, even if you don't know her. Certainly not something I've done, and I can understand why that would freak some people out, absolutely. Spied on an ex in any capacity, including cyber stalking. I won't answer that because they talk, well, the next question is a very similar question, so we'll discuss it with that one.
Okay, spied on a girlfriend in any capacity, including cyber stalking.
So what I didn't get with this is I would have thought that most spying that takes place, especially people that you're already in a sexual relationship with, is not directly sexual in nature. It's because you believe that they're maybe being unfaithful to you, they're having an affair or what have you. So what is she saying? That if she was married and she had real grounds to suspect that her husband was having an affair, she wouldn't attempt to evidence that, and she just keeps thinking, well, it doesn't matter if I'm living a lie for the next 5 years, I'll live a lie for the next 5 years, because what I mustn't do is spy on him in any capacity. What absolute hogwash.
Made a comment about her body when she didn't ask you to.
Again, we're getting back to this strange kind of game playing, as if we're all playing this weird kind of social game, trying to trap one another to say something that's going to constitute sexual harassment, so that when we go out on a night out, we're all trying to make our bodies look as great as we can, especially younger people, right, who are trying to attract people of the opposite sex. You know, the guys are spending more money than they can afford on the clothes. Let's be honest, the girls are doing the same, and we're all picking things that we think we look good in. If we've got a very good body, you know, we're picking things that are tight and revealing and show off that body. If we haven't got quite such a good body, maybe things that flatter a little bit more. But should anybody comment on that? Right, should anybody comment on that? It's sexual harassment and we're to take offence at it. I mean, honestly, it's just kind of depressing that anybody would view the world in that kind of a light.
Touched a woman you know without her consent, touched a woman you don't know without her consent. Remember, keep the 1 point if you've done any of these. Took photos of her without her knowledge or consent.
You see, this is so fucking ignorant. I don't know about the photograph thing, but just on the touching thing, we all know, I mean, let's be honest, we all know some people that are just a bit too touchy-feely. And it's not even a sexual thing. I know heterosexual guys that I find are a bit too much in your space. They touch you, you know, it's just they're very huggy, touchy, stand too close to you when they speak to you and you're sort of going back like this. There's nothing sexual about it. Some people are just like that. That is rape culture, apparently. Now, or just, you know, if there's a guy I know and his wife, I can smack him on the shoulder, I can put my arm around him, I can pat him on the back, that's acceptable. But if I do it to her, then that's sexual harassment. And I just don't buy that. That's just not how humans interact. And portraying it in that way in this video, I think is harmful. So on to the next page, and I won't read through the first four because I don't, again, have quite so much problem with those. So let's go on to the last one and see what they have to say about that.
Manipulated her into sleeping with you. I have a friend who told me that they would go out to the club and fake an Australian accent and fake up this whole life of like being like a football player in Australia, and then would like sleep with women that way, and that's manipulation.
I've been lied to about their age as well. They said they were older when they were like 4 years younger, and it wasn't illegal at the time, but still, that's still awful.
No,
you know?
Don't lie.
Yeah,
just don't lie.
Yeah.
So when I read manipulated into sleeping, I was thinking about something a little bit more coercive and a little bit more sinister, and I was thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's out of order. But then with the example that was given, I think that's a kind of dangerous path to go down, isn't it? If you make out, I would never do this. It's not something that I would do. But if you make out you have got put on an Australian accent, or make out that you're a fighter pilot or something along those lines, and somebody decides to have sex with you, what, on the grounds that you're Australian or that you're a fighter pilot or something? I mean, it's maybe a bit dishonest on your part, but then where does this end? Right, what about wearing corrective makeup? What I mean is maybe one of your eyes is a little bit lower than the other, so you wear some makeup to make it not obvious that your eyes are level, or your nose is a little bit out and you wear a little bit more blusher on one cheek than the other or something to sort of disguise that. Or what about these sort of chicken fillets, you know, these kind of chicken fillet things that some women with smaller breasts wear in their bra that makes it look as if they've got larger breasts than they otherwise would have. Is that manipulation? Is that sexual harassment? If you end up scoring with a guy, taking him home and he has sex with you, and he's been attracted to your, I mean, I hope he hasn't looked at them, right? Because otherwise he's a sexual harasser as well. So how he knows about these large looking breasts, I don't know. I shudder to think, right? But if he's been attracted by your breasts and it's not entirely, you know, there's a little bit going on there, you take your bra off and they're actually not as large as you were portraying them to be, then is that manipulation as well? This is a bit of a rabbit hole we're going down here, isn't it? And so on to the next page. Forget about the first one, I'm not so interested in that. I'm interested in the next four. And think about the context here. We're not talking about whether something's decent, you know, reasonable behaviour or not. We're talking about whether it's sexual harassment. We're talking about whether it constitutes rape culture. So the former threatened a girlfriend so that she won't end the relationship, forbade her from going to certain places, forbade her for wearing certain kinds of clothes, forbade her from talking to specific people. Certainly the first of those four, I would say, is almost always out of order. The others are situational. Sometimes we're doing it out of concern, aren't we? Especially if our partner is also the mother or father of our children. children is that we're concerned about their welfare. And that might be where we say, look, I really do not want you going to this place or talking to that person. They're a dangerous person. So we might have legitimate reasons for doing that. How can you suggest that these things, which often have no sexual element in them whatsoever, constitute sexual harassment? I mean, this is being given as evidence of things that constitute rape culture. It's regrettable, but it happens, is that sometimes women say to their partners, if you leave me, you won't get to see your children anymore. Right? Terrible thing to say, but in what world is that rape culture? So on to the next page, and the last three on this page, each one of them I found absolutely baffling. Okay, so let's have a look at each one of those three.
Tried to hook up with her and only stopped when you found out that she had a boyfriend, whether or not she had a boyfriend or not.
So this question didn't make any sense to me. Maybe it was just badly worded. Maybe what it was trying to suggest is this kind of scenario where somebody tries it on. They get told, I'm not interested, piss off, I'm not attracted to you, but they keep going and they only stop. They only stop. The only thing that will stop them down the line is when somebody says, I've got a boyfriend or I've got a girlfriend, right? In which case, that's wrong. But it's not wrong because they stopped when they were told about the boyfriend or girlfriend. It's wrong because they hadn't stopped before then. But that isn't what it says here. It says you've tried to hook up with someone and then stopped. You've only stopped when you found out she had a boyfriend. And surely most people have been in this situation, because I'm assuming we're not demonizing trying to hook up with people, right? Because if we do, then that's the end of the species. This is the last generation of Homo sapiens, folks, because we're not even allowed to try and form relationships anymore. So I'm sure that isn't a problem. And I'm sure most of us have been in a situation where we've tried to hook up with somebody and then they've said to us, look, just to let you know, I've got a boyfriend or I've got a girlfriend. I'm in a relationship already, right? That's what they've said to us. I'm already in a relationship. And we've thought, okay, I hadn't realised that. And so we've backed off. Is that what are we supposed to do then? To avoid sexual harassment, are we supposed to say, well, I don't care, love, I'd still do you, right? I mean, is that not sexual harassment? The question is fucked up.
Failed to get explicit consent before sexual contact.
So you might say I'm being a bit picky here, but my complaint is with the word explicit here. If he just said failed to get consent before sexual contact, then I'd be on board with it. I mean, I can say, I think with my hand on my heart, that I've always had consent before sexual contact and that I've never had an issue afterwards with a woman, other than the fact she's thought I'm shit, of course, but that's a different matter. There's never been an issue of consent afterwards or any kind of contention that consent wasn't present afterwards. But can I say I've always had explicit consent? I don't know what that means. Does that mean I have to have had verbal consent? Or does it mean we have to have had a laundry list of everything that was going to take place during that encounter before sexual contact took place? If either of those things are the requirement, then no. Which means I get a mark, which means that encounter, which was a positive encounter for both parties, actually constitutes sexual harassment, not just on my part, but mind-bogglingly on their part as well.
Made sexual remarks about a woman with your friends. So remember, if you've done this, take a point.
Oh, so finally, this is what we've got down. This isn't the end of the quiz, right? So this will be the last one I play you because I don't think there's any more. I'm labouring the point beyond this. I won't play you the rest of them. But this is what we've got down to. This is the low watermark. It doesn't get any lower than this. Made sexual remarks about a woman with your friends. Or if you're a woman, made sexual remarks about a man with your friends. What could be more mundane and normal than that, than making sexual remarks about somebody? You go out with your friends. You're a woman. You go out with your girlfriends. You see a really attractive man. He looks like he's got a great body, and you say, I wouldn't mind seeing him with his shirt off. I wouldn't mind seeing him undressed. I wouldn't mind seeing him in my bed. Right? That is sexual harassment. That is rape culture that you are perpetuating when you do that. Now, I mean, fucking come on. You know, you're taking the piss now, aren't you? Right. And I tell you what, I'll play you one more. And there's a reason that I'll play this one more.
Told women who say they're harassed every day that they're exaggerating, or like, I appreciate when people do it on my Instagram, tell me that I'm just trying to be a victim.
It's kind of mind-boggling that. If that statement was made on its own, I could take it on board. But following up from, what have we got, 5.5 minutes hyperbolization, of raising the stakes, of making the mundane into sexual harassment, from taking situations where most of the time both parties would be entirely happy with what's gone on, everybody's had a damn good time, nobody's been hurt, raising that to the level of sexual harassment, raising that to the level of rape culture. And then saying this thing about told women who say they're harassed every day that they're exaggerating, when you as a woman have just been exaggerating for 5.5 fucking minutes and trying to spin straw into gold. I just really don't know what to say there. And this list goes on, right? There's more of this shit. I don't need to go through that. There's a danger to this, right? This isn't just trivia. This isn't just something to have a bit of a laugh at on the internet. This, when you're conflating something that is genuinely terrible with things which are not, which people look at it and they think, well, hang on, these are decent situations. I've been here once before, and this was a video that Lacey Green had made on drunk sex and rape. And what Lacey Green said is that if you have sex with somebody who's over the drink drive limit, then you've raped them, even if they've given you their consent. Now, the drink drive limit is about 2 pints of beer. So effectively, if you've ever had sex with somebody who's had 2 pints of beer or more, however enthusiastic, even if they were the driving force of it, even if they wanted to have sex, even if they loved it, even if they were happy afterwards, they were raped because they were incapable of, according to Lacey Green, of consenting. If anybody's ever had sex with you when you've had 2 pints of beer, they've raped you because, according to Lacey Green in that video, you were incapable of consenting. Now, of course, this is nonsense, right? And I'm sure if I asked Lacey Green now, she'd say, no, that's nonsense. But the danger is that you're conflating something in rape which is abhorrent and which we want to keep abhorrent, which is a situation where most people's experience of that is a good time. You're creating a definition where most of the rapes, most of the things you've just labelled as rape are positive experiences for all parties involved. Surely you can all see the danger in that, and that's exactly what this video has done here. It's taken the mundane, it's taken things that happen all the time that nobody have a problem with. People go out with revealing clothing, people notice they have revealing clothing and look at them in their revealing clothing and maybe even make a nice remark about how gorgeous their body looks in that revealing clothing. But apparently now we're going to sit that alongside what Harvey Weinstein did, right, and say these things are in some way comparable. That is a really, really dangerous thing to do. You're not helping the situation, however much you think you're helping the situation here, and enlarging the conversation, you're not. You're conflating the abhorrent, you're conflating the things that need to be dealt with the things that are actually the no problem whatsoever. That's a really, really dangerous thing to do. It needs to stop. Thank you for watching this video. Bye for now.